I implored him to continue as my stepson enveloped me entirely. As the late afternoon sun cast its warm glow, I busied myself with tidying my bedroom, when suddenly, the door creaked ominously behind me. I pivoted, and there was Alden framed in the doorway, his eyes fixed on the item cradled in my hands. My heart stopped its rhythmic dance. How can I express this clearly? The object exuded an aura of danger, far from being innocuous. It stood as a colossal, vibrantly hued toy well, impossible to ignore in any conversation of substance. Without a second thought, I had pulled it from the drawer to tend to the back of the cabinet. I was certain I had locked the door tight. Alden was my stepchild, aged 23. His return was not anticipated at this hour. He toiled at a local brewery, often finding himself in the company of friends long into the night after his shifts. There he stood, tall and slender, his black hair flowing into his amused blue eyes. "What could that possibly be?" he asked, his voice dancing between curiosity and mischief, making my cheeks burn with embarrassment. I let go of the item as though it had burned my skin, quickly grabbing the next object, a throw pillow from the bed, to hide it away. "It's none of your business," I muttered under my breath. As I felt a tightening sensation in my throat, I observed that his expression remained utterly unaffected. Instead, he rested against the door frame, his curiosity deepening. "There's no need to pretend you're embarrassed," he remarked with a slight chuckle. "I have certainly accomplished that." Never before had I come across anything quite like that. It filled me with a longing to fade into the shadows. The sheer audacity of this individual to stand there, unperturbed and nonchalant, while my life descended into chaos is nothing short of remarkable. I stifled a laugh, keen to lighten the tension of the moment. Alden remarked, "Honestly, mind your own business. Your presence here is uninvited." Yet he stayed motionless. For a few moments silence surrounded us, thick and almost unbearable. He ceased to look at the pillow cradled in my hands. He focused his gaze upon me. His gaze was unmistakable, devoid of the usual ease or playful expressions I had come to expect. This one endured with remarkable fervor and unwavering intensity. It felt as if he had peeled away a facade he thought I wore, revealing an entirely different person beneath. An unexpected feeling surged through me. A flicker of warmth nestled deep in my chest, soon overshadowed by a sharp pang of regret. This was incorrect. This was undeniably mistaken. I found myself in the role of his stepmother, for heaven's sake. I was united in marriage to his father. I shattered the tranquility and brought forth a sense of upheaval. Alden merely shrugged, lifting his hands in a feigned gesture of surrender. He acknowledged me with a nonchalant air, yet just before he left, he threw one last look my way, a gaze that deepened the storm of thoughts swirling in my mind as the door clicked shut behind him. I perched on the edge of the bed, clutching the pillow tightly to my chest, my heart racing in response. The item eluded my attempts to be returned to the drawer. A subtle shift had taken place in the air surrounding us, and no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, I understood that my perception of Alden would forever be altered for the rest of the evening. The moment hung in the air of my mind. I endeavored to take action. As the evening unfolded, I crafted a delightful supper, meticulously arranged the laundry, and settled beside Victor on the couch, where he immersed himself in the timeless allure of classic westerns flickering on the screen. Still, the joy radiating from Alden's smile, and the unsettling sparkle in his gaze remained etched in my thoughts. Victor barely registered my distraction. It held no significance. 4 years following his retirement, he had immersed himself in his passions: gardening, woodworking, and the intricate challenge of crossword puzzles. I held no resentment toward him for this. Such a perspective would have been excessively simplistic. Yet, there were moments when I felt more like a caregiver than a partner. I caught a fleeting glimpse of Alden's shadow as it moved through his room and down the hall. I perceived the gentle resonance, the melody drifting from behind his door. A profound bass line at odds with the serene atmosphere of the home made my heart leap in an inexplicable manner. I turned my attention to my husband, Victor, who lay peacefully asleep. His chin dipped toward his chest. Once again, he had surrendered to the embrace of sleep in his recliner. As the television droned on in the background, I found myself pondering whether to awaken him, only to question the very reason for such an action. I rose and wandered toward the kitchen, savoring a fleeting moment of solitude, Yet my isolation proved to be ephemeral. Alden stepped inside, his bare feet making no sound. On the hardwood floor, he donned a worn t-shirt and comfortable sweatpants. His hair was a tousled mess, as if he'd just run his hands through it in a moment of carefree abandon. "Hey," he said with a nonchalant air, as he opened the fridge and reached for a bottle of water. "It seems the night has drawn you in." "I could express the same sentiment towards you," I responded, maintaining a playful tone. He offered a smile, casually leaning against the counter. "The counter is simply unwinding. It's a challenge to navigate life beneath this roof. At times, certain remarks give me cause to reflect. Could you clarify what you mean?" He shrugged, yet a flicker of gravity lingered in his gaze. "It's merely a return to this place once more. I suppose I sense that I no longer belong." I yielded to gentleness. In that moment, despite all that had transpired, a flicker of maternal concern stirred within me. "This is merely a fleeting moment, Alden. You will find your way. You possess intelligence and competence. You will find your footing once again." "Thank you." Melina spoke, his voice now a mere whisper. "Your acknowledgement means a great deal to me." For a fleeting moment we lingered in silence, and the kitchen seemed to shrink around us. The distance that once separated us diminished, despite neither of us shifting. His gaze remained fixed on mine, igniting that familiar flicker of warmth in my chest once more. I cleared my throat and occupied my hands, wiping the counter in a frantic attempt to shatter the impending spell that loomed over me. Yet Alden had more to say about what transpired earlier. His tone began to take on a playful quality once more. "There's no need for embarrassment, you see. After all, we are all just human beings, aren't we?" My hand halted in its motion, and I turned to him, striving to maintain my composure. "Alden, let us refrain from discussing that matter." "Very well, it was an unintentional occurrence, and there's no need to revisit it. Is that all right?" he declared, lifting his hands in a gesture of capitulation. Yet, within his smile lingered a playful hint that sent a flutter through my stomach. He strolled by, drawing near enough for me to catch a subtle hint of his cologne. I remained facing forward, yet his presence lingered behind me for a fleeting moment before he finally departed the kitchen that night while I lay in bed beside Victor. Thoughts surged through my mind. What was unfolding within me, between us, within these walls? I had always managed to uphold distinct boundaries that were not to be transgressed, yet Alden possessed an uncanny ability to blur those lines, often without even intending to. And the most troubling aspect was my uncertainty about wanting him to cease until the dawn of the next day, when I attempted to resume a facade of normalcy. I set about preparing breakfast as I always did, crafting eggs, toast, and coffee for Victor, while blending a smoothie for myself. Alden, as was his custom, was the final one to enter the kitchen. His hair still glistening from the shower, he offered Victor a laid-back morning greeting and directed a warm smile at me, sending my heart racing. We gathered around the table, the sound of silverware clinking and the occasional murmur of conversation weaving through the atmosphere. Yet, beneath the surface, the tension was palpable with each fleeting touch of Alden's hand against mine. Whether we were passing the salt or pouring another cup of coffee, it seemed intentional. I noticed him observing me more intently. Then, with his gaze steady and inscrutable, Victor, as expected, remained oblivious to it all. Once breakfast had concluded, Alden graciously extended his offer to assist me with the cleanup. Typically, he would have vanished into his room or gone out with friends, so his unexpected offer took me by surprise. "You don't have to," I said. "Stack plates in the sink." "I want to," he replied, his hands already reaching for a dish rag. We toiled in quietude for a time, yet the atmosphere surrounding us crackled with unspoken tension. In a fleeting moment I extended my hand toward a glass just as he did, and our fingers met in an unexpected clash. Neither of us withdrew at once. "You're different," he murmured, his voice barely rising above a whisper. "Could you clarify what you mean?" I inquired. My throat felt parched and he paused, his gaze probing into mine. "I am unfamiliar with you. Only you. Refrain from conforming to the behaviors typical of women in your age group." I chuckled uneasily, retreating to establish a bit of space between us. "How kind of you to say so." It seems that his tone remained serious as he continued. "You exist in truth. You truly pay attention." The sincerity in his voice caught me by surprise. Words eluded me. I returned my attention to the dishes, yet as I diligently scrubbed, an unmistakable sense of his presence lingered just behind me. Once more my heart raced with fervor, and I loathed the intensity of my desire for him to linger there while I struggled to collect my thoughts. Victor's voice echoed from the living room, beckoning Molina. "Where has my crossword book gone?" The moment fractured and Alden retreated slightly, offering me a subtle, understanding smile. "I'll allow you to return to him," he remarked. His voice, light and airy, lingered in the air as he walked away. A blend of relief and yearning washed over me. I was acutely aware that I was toying with danger, yet a fragment of my being was irresistibly drawn to the warmth of that afternoon. I immersed myself in a flurry of errands, seeking to occupy my restless mind. Upon my return home, I discovered Alden perched on the porch steps, gazing contemplatively at the yard. He appeared to be adrift in contemplation, a stark contrast to the assured young man I had grown accustomed to observing. He murmured as I drew near. He lifted his gaze, a subtle smile spreading across his face. "Greetings, is everything well with you?" He paused, weighing his response carefully. Indeed, pondering over what exactly. Contemplating life, I pondered the direction I'm taking, the path I ought to pursue. I settled beside him, maintaining a respectful distance, yet near enough to sense the comforting warmth of his presence. "You are still in your youth, Alden. It's perfectly fine not to have everything sorted out at this moment." Perhaps he uttered those words, his eyes remaining steadfastly on the yard. After a moment of silence, he continued, "Do you ever sense that you're destined for something else, as if you're ensnared?" In an unexpected narrative, his words resonated more deeply than I was willing to acknowledge. I felt a strong urge to console him, to assure him that everything would turn out fine. Yet, deep down, I harbored doubts about my own conviction. I rested my hand on his shoulder, applying a gentle squeeze. "You are not confined," I spoke, wishing he wouldn't catch the quiver in my tone. For an instant, he enveloped my hand with his, and the act felt profoundly intimate. I withdrew swiftly, yet the harm had already been inflicted. A further line has been crossed, a boundary has become indistinct, and I found myself questioning whether I possessed the strength to halt it any longer. As dusk settled, the heavens darkened ominously with the approach of a storm, and the atmosphere grew thick, as if the very earth held its breath in anticipation of an impending event. Victor had retired for the night sooner than usual, as was his custom, lamenting the discomfort of an aching shoulder. I had nestled into the living room, a book cradled in my hands, yet my attention drifted to the tempest outside, reflecting the turmoil brewing within me. Restless, unpredictable, and fraught with danger. Alden moved about the kitchen, the rhythmic sound of the fridge opening and closing echoing softly through the stillness of the house. The soft sound of glass meeting glass reached my ears as he filled his glass with a drink. Shortly thereafter, he emerged in the threshold of the living room, cradling 2 glasses of whiskey. He inquired, arching an eyebrow. My eyes fluttered, momentarily taken aback. I typically refrain from drinking at this hour. "Perhaps tonight is an exception," he remarked with a playful grin, offering me a glass before I could respond. With a moment of hesitation, I reached for the cool glass. Alden settled into the armchair opposite me, pressing against my palm as he stretched his legs out with an air of nonchalance. The lamp beside me cast a warm glow across his face, accentuating the sharp angles of his jaw and the faint shadow of stubble on his cheeks. "What are you reading?" he inquired, gesturing toward the volume resting in my lap. "Merely a trifle," I responded, lifting it into view. "In a nutshell, there was nothing thrilling about it," he remarked with a smirk. I struggled to accept that as truth. I chuckled gently, savoring a sip of the whiskey. It seared, yet it offered a much-needed reprieve from the mounting tension that had been accumulating. For a stretch of time, we lingered in a serene quietude, the tempest outside intensifying, until he finally broke the stillness with his words once more. His voice carries a hushed timbre. "May I pose a question to you?" I cast a tired glance in his direction. "It varies based on the specifics." He swirled the liquid in his glass, his gaze locked onto it as if he were collecting his thoughts. "Have you ever found yourself feeling trapped?" His inquiry took me by surprise. It bore an unsettling resemblance to the question he'd posed earlier on the porch, yet now it carried a distinct heaviness. At times, I found myself acknowledging that my voice fell short of the volume I had hoped to convey. He raised his gaze, and in that moment our eyes locked. You appear to be someone who deserves to be free. Your spirit is far too vibrant for such limitations. My cheeks burned with a sudden warmth, and I averted my gaze, placing my glass gently on the coffee table. Alden, it would be wise to refrain from making such statements. What's stopping us? Indeed it is. His words lingered in the atmosphere, heavy with unexpressed significance. I rose suddenly, craving distance from him. I believe it's time we called it a night, I murmured, deliberately steering clear of his gaze. Just as I was about to step out of the room, the lights flickered and darkness enveloped me. The abrupt onset of darkness enveloped me, leaving me momentarily paralyzed in my stride. I whispered, my voice trembling. It's merely the storm, Alden remarked, his voice steady and composed. I could hear the gentle shuffle of his feet against the carpet. Just a moment. Let me locate a flashlight. I sensed his approach, the subtle whisper of fabric brushing against itself as he drew near. In that moment, his hand grazed mine in the shadows, and I inhaled sharply, caught off guard. Apologies escaped his lips, yet he remained close, unwilling to break the connection. His hand rested warmly against mine, and the atmosphere surrounding us appeared to change. I remained still. I was unable to. My heart raced with such intensity that I was convinced he could hear its frantic rhythm. Molina murmured, his voice scarcely rising above a whisper. I shifted my gaze in his direction, though the darkness obscured him from view. Yet his presence enveloped me. His warmth radiated, his breathing steady and reassuring. Then I felt his hand glide to my wrist, a gentle hold that spoke volumes. Text, this is a terrible idea, I said, my voice quaking with uncertainty. I understand, he said, yet he remained steadfast, unwilling to release his grip. The initial flash of lightning illuminated the room for a fleeting instant, and in that heartbeat, I beheld his face, earnest, vulnerable, and achingly near, before he pressed his lips to mine. The kiss began gently, hesitant, as if he anticipated my rejection, yet I remained still. Instead, I found myself leaning into him, my hands gripping his shirt as if he were the only solid thing in a spinning world. When the lights flickered back on, we broke apart, both of us breathing hard, the reality of what had just transpired crashing over me like a wave. I stepped back, my hands trembling. It's impossible, I declared, my head shaking in disbelief. Alden remained silent. He remained motionless, his face a mask of inscrutability. I understand, he replied, his voice unwavering once more. Yet the harm had already been inflicted. The ensuing days unfolded in a haze of furtive glances and silent conversations. I steered clear of Alden as best as I could, immersing myself in chores and errands, seeking any distraction to occupy my thoughts. Yet, despite my efforts, I found it impossible to erase the memory of his lips against mine or the way his hand had brushed my wrist one evening while I folded laundry in the guest room. Alden stood framed in the doorway. We need to talk, he said, his voice resolute. I kept my gaze downwards. There is nothing left to discuss. Indeed there is. He entered the room, gently shutting the door behind him. I let out a soft sigh, placing the laundry aside as I finally locked eyes with him. Alden, whatever this may be, it must come to an end. Is it truly wrong? He inquired with a tone that was defiant, as it seemed right to me. His words sent a chill coursing through me, yet I compelled myself to remain. Stay calm. You don't grasp the implications. If Victor were to discover this, Alden wouldn't dare interrupt. And even if he did find out, do you honestly believe he would care? He hardly seems to acknowledge your presence these days. His words pierced deeply, not solely due to their truth, yet that did not render them just. This is not about him, I declared. My voice ascends, echoing the essence of us, underscoring that this, whatever it may be, cannot come to pass. It transcends mere wrongness. It cannot be done. Alden stepped forward, his gaze fixed intently on mine. What is the reason behind this? For fear of others' opinions, you find yourself grappling with your own thoughts. I parted my lips to speak, yet silence enveloped me. Molina pressed on, his voice taking on a gentler tone. I'm not attempting to complicate things for you, but I can't ignore the feelings I have for you, and I sense you might not feel the same. Tears threatened to spill from the corners of my eyes, compelling me to avert my gaze from you. I find myself perplexed. I whispered, then he urged me to explain, his voice laced with desperation, yet I found myself unable to articulate the turmoil within, the guilt, the fear, the longing that consumed me. I simply shook my head and moved past him, exiting the room in silence. That evening, slumber eluded me. I reclined in bed, my gaze fixed on the ceiling, attuned to the gentle rhythmic hum of Victor's breathing beside me. My mind swirled with a tempest of thoughts and emotions, each one intertwined in a chaotic dance that I could not decipher. At a certain moment, I rose and made my way to the kitchen, yearning for a glass of water to soothe my frayed nerves, but as I entered the hallway, I found myself paralyzed. Alden's door stood ajar, and he leaned casually against the doorframe, as if he had been anticipating my arrival. "Rest eludes me?" he inquired, his tone barely above a whisper. I shook my head, rendered speechless. For what felt like an eternity, we locked eyes, the air thick with unspoken words, and then, almost instinctively, I pivoted and retreated to my room, shutting the door softly behind me. Yet, as I settled back onto my bed, a nagging certainty lingered. This was far from finished. This enigmatic, perilous connection we shared was not fading, and I found myself uncertain of my desire for it. When it occurred again, there was no tempest to cast shadows nor a wavering bulb to retreat into. This moment was intentional. It all began in the most unexpected of locations, the laundry room. As I retrieved the warm towels from the dryer, the familiar cadence of folding them provided a welcome reprieve from the ordinary. Silence enveloped the house. Victor had ventured to a friend's abode to catch a game, leaving me with the impression that I had the space all to myself. Then I heard the gentle creak of the floorboards behind me. "Always at work," Alden remarked, his tone airy yet tinged with an elusive undertone I couldn't fully grasp. I chose not to look back. "Someone has to," I replied, striving to maintain a neutral tone. He chuckled gently. "That's a valid point, but do you ever find yourself feeling weary? Of it? Weary of what? Managing all aspects? Caring for all around you? When was the last occasion someone tended to your needs?" His words pierced me with the sharpness of a blade. I turned, clutching a folded towel against my chest as if it were a shield. "Alden, I believe this is not a discussion we ought to engage in. What holds us back?" he inquired, his posture relaxed as he leaned against the doorframe. He appeared utterly relaxed, seemingly unaffected, yet his eyes conveyed an entirely different narrative. They were keen, probing, and intensely fixed on me as I spoke, my voice wavering. "It's not appropriate," he reiterated, as if probing the meaning of a word that diverges from honesty, "doesn't it? I wish to engage in the debate as well." Silence him before he has the chance to utter anything further that could exacerbate the situation. Yet, just as I was about to, he moved in nearer. As he drew nearer, his voice was gentle. "You don't need to put on a facade with me, Molina. I perceive your presence. Your strength in maintaining this home is evident. You hold everything in place while others simply take without giving back. Do you not believe you are worthy of something just for you?" My throat constricted, and I shook my head, retreating until I felt the cool edge of the counter press against my hips. "Alden, this must come to an end, whatever it may be." He extended his hand, and in that fleeting moment, his fingers grazed against my own. Though it was merely a small, uncomplicated gesture, it seemed as if the very earth beneath my feet was transforming. "You can't possibly be immune to this," he said. His voice barely rose above a whisper. I parted my lips to speak, yet silence enveloped me, for I found myself unable to utter the truth, that I could not deceive him, nor could I deceive myself. And then, just as it had happened that night in the living room, he kissed me. Yet this time I chose not to intervene. The ensuing days unfolded in a haze of fleeting encounters and hushed confessions. We exercised caution, or so we believed. Alden had a knack for crafting reasons to remain in my presence, whether it was offering assistance with dinner, mending a faulty cabinet door, or even eagerly volunteering to accompany me on errands. In the beginning, the exhilaration was palpable, a tantalizing dance with the forbidden. Yet the gravity of our circumstances loomed large in my mind. I was aware that it was destined to end. It was inevitable. I understood that the collapse was just around the corner. As I was putting away groceries one afternoon, I felt a sudden warmth as Alden approached from behind, enveloping me in his embrace. I tensed, casting a furtive glance at the doorway to ensure I was alone. Alden let out a sharp hiss, attempting to break free. At any moment, Six might make an entrance. At the hardware store, Alden spoke with a calm and relaxed tone. Yet I found it impossible to ease my own tension. The creeping dread began to gnaw at my insides. Each time Victor's gaze fell upon me, I couldn't help but ponder whether he was aware of Bethany, our inquisitive neighbor, who persistently waved at me from the other side of the street. It seemed as though she could peer directly into my soul. "We need to talk," he said, turning to face Alden regarding his request. His expression was unable to convey what he felt about us. His jaw clenched, and for the first time, a spark of anger glimmered in his eyes. "What is to become of us? This haboozy does not cease," I uttered, struggling to push the words forth. "The potential for danger is too great. Seems unjust to Victor." Victor's voice rose as he repeated himself. "What seems fair to you? Are you truly listening to your own words? Your preoccupation with him has clouded your own desires, leaving little room for your own aspirations." "My desires hold no significance. I lost my composure. Transcends my own existence," Alden retorted sharply. "Happiness is your rightful companion, Molina. You are worthy of a partner who truly perceives the weight of your words, suspended in the atmosphere, profound and unwavering." I felt the urge to contest his viewpoint, to assert that he was mistaken, yet an undeniable truth lingered within me, whispering that he was indeed correct. A few weeks later, the moment of truth arrived when Victor extended an invitation to Bethany and her husband for dinner, and I found myself striving to embody the ideal hostess. Yet, throughout the evening, Bethany's keen gaze felt as if it were fixed upon me, and an unsettling sensation lingered that she possessed some hidden knowledge after dinner. While I was tidying up in the kitchen, Bethany approached me with determination. "You've been quite distracted lately," she remarked, her tone light. Yet her gaze searched deeply, revealing an underlying concern beneath the surface of busyness. I responded, mustering a smile. "You're familiar with the experience." She leaned in slightly, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Is Victor aware?" "No," I felt my heart freeze, pounding in my chest. "No," she shrugged, her expression unreadable. "Whatever is happening between you and Alden." It was as if the very earth beneath my feet had been violently torn away. "I'm not quite sure I understand your point," I spoke, my voice trembling. Bethany smiled, yet the warmth did not touch her eyes. "Exercise caution. The secrets of Molina have a peculiar tendency to reveal themselves under the cover of night." As I reclined in bed, Bethany's words echoed relentlessly in my thoughts. I found myself ensnared, suspended between two realms that refused to harmonize. The following morning, Alden discovered me in the garden, yanking at the weeds with an intensity that seemed excessive. "You're avoiding me," he remarked. His voice remained steady, yet carried an undercurrent of frustration. "I'm striving to shield us," I responded, my gaze fixed elsewhere. "Shield us from what?" he inquired. As I stepped closer to the chaos unfolding before us, I stood tall, brushing my hands against my jeans. "Bethany is acquainted with Alden. She is aware." His brow furrowed, a shadow crossing his features. "How could she possibly know?" "Text, I am uncertain. Yet she possesses the knowledge," I remarked. Her voice rose, "And if she were to tell Victor, she wouldn't," he stated with conviction. "You can't be sure of that." I lost my composure. "You fail to grasp the peril that lies ahead." Alden took hold of my hand. His grip was firm yet gentle. "What I grasp is that I wish to hold on to you." The unfiltered emotion in his voice took me by surprise. In that fleeting instant, words eluded me. "You shall not," I uttered at last, my voice scarcely rising above a whisper. "Yet, we must tread carefully for the well-being of us both." The subsequent days were fraught with tension. Bethany remained silent in Victor's presence, or at least that was my understanding. Yet, the burden of her doubt loomed over me, casting a shadow that felt inescapable. Alden attempted to offer me comfort, yet there was an unmistakable tension in his demeanor, more pronounced than I had ever seen before. One evening, Victor returned home sooner than anticipated. In the laundry room, Alden and I found ourselves standing uncomfortably close when the sound of the front door creaking open reached our ears. We separated abruptly, reminiscent of youthful indiscretions. Victor's voice echoed through the house as he called my name. And here I responded, my voice unwavering even as the turmoil surged within me. Victor stood in the doorway, his gaze traversing the expanse of the room. For a fleeting instant, I believed he was on the verge of uttering a word. Yet, he merely inclined his head in acknowledgement. "The dinner is nearly prepared," I remarked. He departed swiftly, leaving no further words behind. Yet the gaze he bestowed upon me remained etched in my mind long after his departure. That night slumber eluded me. The moment in the laundry room played over and over in my mind, the way Victor's gaze had held on to me for just a heartbeat longer than it should have. I sensed that I was perched precariously on the brink of a precipice. It was inevitable that the entire facade would eventually crumble, and yet I found myself unable to bring it to a close. What existed between Alden and me was undeniably profound, an overwhelming force that made it impossible to just turn my back and walk away. Yet, beneath the surface, I sensed that the tempest had not yet reached its conclusion. The dawn of something new was unfolding. It began with Victor arriving home much earlier than anticipated. Yet, on this occasion it was more than mere timing. That took me by surprise. His visage was taut, an enigma etched upon his features. Upon entering the house, Alden Victor placed his briefcase down with a purposeful thud, his voice cutting through the air, sending a jolt through my stomach. Alden strolled into the hallway moments later, his relaxed demeanor a stark contrast to Victor's palpable tension. "Hello there," he inquired, propped against the wall, his hands tucked into his pockets. Victor's gaze sharpened. "It is imperative that we engage in conversation at this moment." The inflection in his voice brooked no dissent. Alden cast a fleeting look my way, a hint of worry dancing in his gaze before he trailed after Victor into the living room. I remained motionless in the kitchen, my heart racing with intensity. Initially, their words eluded my ears, overshadowed by the deep resonance of Victor's voice and the sporadic, softer replies from Alden. Yet, as their dialogue intensified, the meaning crystallized. "I know what's been going on," Victor said, his voice cold and unyielding. "What do you mean by that?" Alden responded, his voice steady yet cautious. "Don't play dumb with me," Victor snapped. "I've observed the glances you exchange, the way your eyes meet hers, and how hers respond to yours. Do you believe I am unable to see?" A chill coursed through my veins. He was aware, or at the very least he had enough suspicion to challenge Alden Victor. Alden remarked, "You're merely conjuring illusions." His voice, more composed than I had anticipated, reveals that nothing is amiss. "Don't lie to me," Victor bellowed, and the sharp crack of something, perhaps a glass, shattering echoed in the air. I could no longer remain in the shadows. I crossed the threshold, my hands quivering, and Victor came to a halt. Both men turned to me, their expressions starkly contrasting. Victor's face was a tumultuous blend of anger and betrayal, while Alden wore a mask of defiance, akin to Molina. Victor spoke, his tone subdued yet still brimming with menace. "Be honest with me, is there something happening between you two?" I parted my lips, yet the words eluded me. My silence spoke volumes, and Victor let out a bitter laugh, his fingers raking through his thinning hair. "I knew it," he said, his voice trembling. "I didn't want to accept it, but deep down I knew." "Victor, please." I moved in closer, but he interjected, raising a hand to halt me. "Don't even attempt to justify it," he said. "There's nothing you can say that will make this right." The atmosphere thickened with an uneasy quiet, punctuated solely by the relentless ticking of the clock mounted on the wall. At last, Victor faced Alden, his gaze aflame with intensity. "You're out," he declared with a chilling finality. "Pack your things and leave tonight." Alden held his position, his jaw clenched in determination. "I shall remain right here." "Indeed you are," Victor retorted. "You will not remain beneath my roof and treat me with such disrespect." "I think you should calm down," Alden said, his voice steady yet resolute, a tone that only served to fuel Victor's anger further. He advanced toward Alden, his hands balled into tight fists at his sides. "Do not suggest that I should calm down, you insignificant." "Stop it," I shouted, positioning myself between them. "Both of you, just stop," Victor said, turning to me, his eyes brimming with pain. "How could you, Molina?" he inquired, his voice trembling. "After all I have sacrificed for you. I never intended for this to unfold," I whispered, my voice trembling as tears cascaded down my cheeks. "My intentions were never to cause you pain." "Indeed you did," he replied with a touch of bitterness. Now I must confront the reality that my own wife and my son. He paused, shaking his head in disbelief. Words fail me. Alden extended his hand toward me, yet I withdrew mine. His touch was unbearable, especially with Victor's gaze upon us. I believe it's best if I take my leave, I said softly as Victor fixed his gaze upon me, his expression growing more rigid. You're not going anywhere, he declared with unwavering resolve. This is the abode I call home. If anyone is to depart, it is he, Victor. I started to speak, but he interrupted me. I would prefer not to. Hear it, he said, his voice quivering with a barely restrained fury. Your decision is made, Molina, and now you must face the repercussions of Alden's actions that fateful night. He filled a bag in silence, each motion tight and methodical. I trailed behind him to the driveway, my heart shattering with each step I took. I'm sorry, I whispered, my tears cascading down my cheeks. He glanced my way, his demeanor gentler than I had anticipated. This isn't over, he declared, his voice unwavering. You're aware of that, aren't you? I nodded in acknowledgement, yet silence enveloped my response. Deep down, a flicker of hope battled with uncertainty, leaving me questioning the veracity of his words. As his car vanished into the distance, a profound ache settled in my chest, a blend of guilt, loss, and an indescribable emotion that eluded my grasp. The subsequent days were nothing short of excruciating. Victor hardly uttered a word to me. His silence inflicted a deeper wound than any words ever could. In that moment, I immersed myself in the myriad of household chores, clinging to the hope that the busyness would shield me from the profound emptiness that enveloped me. A week later, the letter finally arrived. The envelope bore no return address, only my name inscribed in Alden's unmistakable handwriting. I opened it with trembling hands, my heart pounding as I unfolded the paper. Molina, amidst the complexities of the present moment, I want you to understand that my words were sincere. This is far from finished. I remain unfazed by the opinions or words of others. Leaving is not an option for me. I shall not accept anything from you. When the moment arrives, I will be here, unwavering and patient. I read the letter, my hands trembling with each of the 3 readings. A fragment of my being yearned to shred it, to set it ablaze, and to act as if it had never come into being. Yet there was another facet of my being, one I was reluctant to acknowledge, that grasped his words as if they were a vital lifeline. That night, I carefully placed the letter in the back of my dresser drawer, concealing it like a secret I wasn't prepared to reveal to anyone, for I understood deep down that Alden was indeed correct. This was far from finished, not even close.